She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. Fragile skull, I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes and goes, you know, and she's got me living in a chemical love, and I try to find the strength to know when she comes back to me again.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. Today we're going to talk about the new information coming out of Indiana that could possibly have a connection to or implications in the deaths of 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Liberty German from Delphi, Indiana. Now, I know that the new information has been confusing for some people, and there are still other people who aren't even aware of these new updates, so the goal today is to clarify what happened, what it means, and what the Indiana State Police are looking to get from the public. It's very important that we talk about this new information and then tell you what you should do if you have information for the ISP. And I know personally, I was confused when I heard the new information and then other new information that came out of that new information, and I was like, hold on, but we're going to get there. I had to talk to Kelsey German, Libby's sister. I had to do some research and kind of spend some time really understanding what was happening, and hopefully I can clear it all up for you today. But before we dive in, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Native. Several years ago, I started shopping around for a better alternative to conventional deodorants because I wanted to start using a deodorant that was aluminum and paraben-free in an effort to try to be more conscious of what I was putting on and in my body. I went through like this real big health kick a couple years back, and that was one of the things I wanted to change about my life. By far, of all the ones I tried, and there were plenty, and some of them were really bad, Native was the best by far. Like heads and tails better than any of the others. And to this day, I still have not found any other brand that can compare. Native's deodorants are made with familiar and simple ingredients that you'll know and recognize, like coconut oil and shea butter. They are aluminum and paraben-free. They're also vegan and cruelty-free, so I can feel good about using them. But best of all, Native's deodorants, they actually work. A little bit goes a long way. All you need is, 1-2 swipes. The deodorants are non-sticky. They dry super fast, which is perfect for when you're in a rush, which I always am in a rush. And the best part is they keep me smelling good, smelling sweet even, all day long, even after exercise, even after sitting in front of hot studio lights for hours. Now, they do have an unscented option for deodorant for people who have really sensitive skin, but the deodorant also comes in a wide range of delicious scents. And they even have new scents that are released seasonally as like special editions, which is super exciting for me because I love all of their scents. So I'm always excited to see what they're going to do next. Right now, you can check out Native's simple, effective, and festive holiday limited edition scents like Sugar Cookie, which I personally love the Sugar Cookie smell, as well as Candy Cane and Fresh Mistletoe. The three deodorants, the three scents that I've been using nonstop are these right here. We got Earl Grey and Mulberry, Lavender and Rose, and the scent I can confidently now say is my all-time favorite, Cherry and Vanilla Macaron. I love this scent. It smells like this lotion I used to use, Jergens Cherry Almond. It stays on all day. Literally, it smells so good. Like, you have to try this if you haven't. If you're using Native deodorants, if you're not, you haven't tried it, you got to try Cherry and Vanilla Macaron. Because sometimes I'll just smell something good and I'll be like, what is that smell? It smells so good. It's me. It's Cherry and Vanilla Macaron. And I use their matching body wash. So, I'm just like doubling down on the scent. Lavender and Rose smells so good too. It's fresh, it's light. I usually hate the smell of lavender, but in this, I don't. I love it. And then Earl Grey and Mulberry, of course, I don't even know how to explain it. It's sort of fruity, but it also has this, Earl Grey, like the bergamot smell. So good. Native also offers a plastic-free version of their deodorant that uses the same great formula but with a more sustainable packaging. And Native's deodorants make amazing stocking stuffers. Not just their deodorants, actually, but their body washes. Okay, their body washes. Best body washes ever. Best body wash I've ever tried. If you come to my bathroom or my house and then go to my bathroom, you'll see, I think there's 4 of these in the shower right now. Now, 3 deodorants are normally $36, but if you use my link and my code, StephanieH15, you'll get them for $24. The link's in the description box. Click it. Use code StephanieH15 to get 3 deodorants for $24. You can also, with that same code, get 20% off any body wash or toothpaste from Native. And if you love their body washes as much as I do, stock up with the 20% off, because that's a really good deal. Because I know I'm going to stock up, especially in the cherry vanilla macaron scent. Thank you so much to Native for sponsoring this video, but not only that, for making really great products that I personally am a huge fan of. Let's jump in. So this past Monday night, it was December 6th, Derek and I were recording our podcast like we do every Monday night. Shout out to Crime Weekly, by the way. If you haven't checked out our podcast yet, the link is in the description box. We put out new episodes on audio platforms every Friday, and then the video version hits YouTube the following Wednesday. Great podcast. I mean, if I do say so myself. But anyways, we're recording, and I get a text from Kelsey German, who, like I said, most of you know is the older sister of Libby German, and also one of the sweetest girls I've ever met. And she texted me this link to this press conference where the Indiana State Police are reaching out to the public, and what they're reaching out for is they want to know if there's people out there who may have had contact with a specific social media account during the years 2016 and 2017. And I'm going to play you some of that press conference now.
My name is Sergeant Jeremy Piers, the Public Information Officer with the Indiana State Police out of the Lafayette Post. While investigating the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German, detectives with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office and the Indiana State Police have uncovered an online profile named Anthony Schatz. This profile was being used from 2016 to 2017 on social media applications, including but not limited to Snapchat and Instagram. The fictitious Anthony Schatz profile used images of a known male model and portrayed himself as being extremely wealthy and owning numerous sports cars. The creator of the fictitious profile used this information while communicating with juvenile females to solicit nude images, obtain their address, and attempt to meet with them. Pictured on your screen, you'll see images of the known male model and images of the fictitious profile sent to the underage females. We have already identified the male in these images that were used by Anthony Schatz. The male in the photo is not the person of interest in the investigation. Detectives are seeking information about the person who created the Anthony Schatz profile. Investigators would like any individual who communicated, met, or attempted to meet the Anthony Schatz profile to contact law enforcement by utilizing the tip email, abbyandlibbytip@cacoshrf.com. Please provide as much information as you possibly can. For example, when you communicated with Anthony Schatz, how you communicated with the profile, what social media applications the account used, and if Anthony Schatz attempted to meet you or obtain your address. If you have saved images or conversations with Anthony Schatz profile, please attach them to your email. Again, if you have any information, please contact law enforcement by utilizing the tip email, abbyandlibbytip@cacoshrf.com. Thank you.
Okay, so first things first, in case it wasn't clear, the man in those pictures, the young man with the washboard abs, that's not the person that investigators are looking for. Whoever was using that Anthony Schatz profile had taken those pictures and then used them to catfish people online, to try and engage in conversations with underage girls that would result in explicit pictures being exchanged. And whoever was using this Anthony Schatz profile had also tried to get personal information from these girls in an attempt to meet up with some of them in person. Now, the real man who is in those pictures is a male model, and also it was reported in one source that he's a police officer who lives in Alaska. He was tracked down and interviewed by News 8 Indianapolis, at which point he made a statement that he was shocked to find out someone had been using his pictures to commit such horrible crimes against young girls. He says he has 2 daughters himself. This has been heartbreaking for him to think about. And I mean, he's not involved at all. He's not a person of interest. He's not a suspect. He's just a poor guy that got pulled into something he did not ask for. Now, when this new information came out, I think a lot of us were under the impression that the ISP were looking for information from the public because they were looking for the person behind that account. But as it turns out, the man who appears to have been behind this fake Anthony Shots profile is actually 27-year-old Kegan Klein of Peru, Indiana. And Peru is just about 40 miles away from Delphi, less than an hour's drive. And to go even further, it appears that investigators who were on the Delphi case first came in contact with Kegan Klein just 11 days after Abby and Libby were found murdered. So in this video, we're going to look at who Kegan Klein is, what we know about him, and if he could possibly be responsible for or connected to what happened to Abby and Libby, whose families have been waiting for justice for over 5 years. Before I tell you what Kegan Klein did to put him on law enforcement radar in 2017, let's go through his Facebook and see what he's all about. So it looks like in 2012, Kegan Klein was in Kokomo, Indiana. That's about 30 minutes from Delphi. And if you remember, I believe Kokomo was where James Chadwell lived, and that was somebody else a couple of months ago who was arrested and who people thought might be connected to what happened in Delphi. Now, at some point after this, Klein moved to Las Vegas, and he began attending the University of Nevada in Las Vegas in April of 2015. In August of 2016, Klein started 2 new jobs. One was as a bail agent for Bail Bonds Las Vegas, and the other one was as an armed security guard for Lockheed Martin, also in Vegas. The next year, in December of 2016, Kegan Klein began working as a blackjack dealer at Wynn Las Vegas, and that's a casino on the Las Vegas Strip. In January of 2017, he started at another job. This time it was at CBD Saves in Vegas. And the next month, he started a job as a table games dealer at the California Hotel and Casino, which is also in Vegas. So on Facebook, it shows that Kegan Klein started that job on February 13th, 2017, the exact day that Abby and Libby went out one morning to have a fun girls' day at the Mona and High Bridge, and they never came home. So if I was an investigator on this case, I would obviously be contacting the California Hotel and Casino to see, 1, if Kegan Klein ever actually worked there, and 2, what his actual start date was. Because if he was in Las Vegas on February 13th, it would be pretty tough for him to be involved in what happened to Abby and Libby. But just because he says on Facebook he started working there on that date, it doesn't mean he was physically present at the casino on that date. He could have easily updated his Facebook work status from his hometown in Indiana, since during this time, Kegan Klein was going back and forth between Nevada and Indiana. In February of 2018, Klein began a new job at Area 52 Marijuana Delivery, and he lists his position as business owner/engineer. And this was also in Vegas. And the same year, Klein also graduated from the University of Nevada. Now, it looks like Kegan Klein considered himself to be a bit of a musical artist. There's lots of mentions of him being at concerts, wanting to go on tour, missing being on tour, and he posts a lot of rough rap lyrics on Facebook, such as, quote, "I stopped smoking weed a year ago. Maybe I'm less cool now. I don't know. But I got 2 more albums done instead of sitting there all stoned. Yeah, I stopped smoking weed a year ago." And also, quote, "Okay, I finally get the meaning of fighting demons. Late at night, I ain't sleeping. I'm up thinking. I'm a ball all season. For last season, back when I was on the bleachers, they left me needin'." I don't know all what I just said, but those are his words. So he's clearly some kind of musician, or he wants to be a musician. And from Kegan Klein's SoundCloud page, we can see that he was born on May 27th, 1994, a Gemini. He says he was the lead vocalist and guitar player of the pop-punk band called Kegan Klein. I wonder if he was the only member of the band, since it's named after him, and he had formerly been a fill-in singer for the band Palais Royale. His profile also said that he is a inspiring musician living in Las Vegas and Indiana, and he's currently writing his album titled Vegas, which is scheduled to drop worldwide in March of 2020. Now, I wonder if he meant he was an aspiring musician, or did he really mean inspiring? I also read that he was managed by the Artery Foundation, like his music career was managed by the Artery Foundation, and he had been playing poker in Vegas when he was apparently discovered and offered a job with a band called Beartooth, who he then went on tour with for 2 months. Now, it's not super clear, but I don't think he went on tour with the band as a musician. I think he was kind of like a roadie, like the guy that like lugs the speakers to and from the stage and gets the tour bus loaded up, because then he attended the Vans Warped Tour with this band in 2015. And he also went on to work on the Warped Tour in 2017 and 2018. Kegan Kline claims to have worked with bands like Taking Back Sunday, Panic at the Disco, Paramore, Hawthorne Heights, We the Kings, Boys Like Girls, Mayday Parade, and Cute Is What We Aim For. These are pretty big bands. I mean, maybe not like huge bands, they're not Metallica, they're not like Britney Spears, but good bands, that I grew up with. And so to think that this scumbag, because you'll see, he is, trust me, this scumbag worked with these bands, it makes me think less of them. But also, he could be lying, right? And they didn't know. You can't just look at someone and see that they're a creep. Not always, sometimes. If you remember my video about Joel Guy, who actually Keegan Klein kind of reminds me of, you'll know that sometimes people do just look like creeps. Kegan Klein also allegedly had his own marketing company called Klein & Company, and he was planning to go on tour in late 2020 to kick off his album release. I mean, after, reading all that, it seemed like Kegan Klein, he had a lot going for him, a bright future. But none of it would come to fruition because by 2020, he was behind bars for some horrendous charges. On February 25th, 2017, just 11 days after the bodies of Libby and Abby were discovered, the ISP, who's the Indiana State Police, the FBI, and local police served a search warrant at a house in Peru, Indiana. This house was occupied by Kegan Klein and his father. Now, according to a probable cause affidavit, which is heavily redacted, might I add, the ISP was working on another case when they were contacted by the FBI, who informed them that an adult male in Indiana was soliciting juvenile females on Instagram and Snapchat using a catfish profile by the name of Anthony Schatz. Now, the case that the ISP were working on when they got this information, that's redacted in the warrant as well, but it obviously isn't lost on me that, due to the timing, it probably was the Delphi case. That's just my speculation, allegedly, and all that other qualifying nonsense, but I think we're all smart enough here to put 2 and 2 together. Now, could be wrong, I could be completely off base, but let me know what you think in the comments. The address of the home in Peru, Indiana, that law enforcement served this search warrant at, as well as the name of Kegan Klein's father, they were also redacted. The ISP and the FBI sent subpoenas to both Instagram and Snapchat, and they found out that the Anthony Schatz Instagram account had been started on July 20th, 2016, and the Anthony Schatz Snapchat account had been started a week prior, on July 14th, 2016. The search warrant was executed on February 25th, 2017 at 12:30 in the afternoon, and they interviewed Kegan Klein as well as his father. They also removed several electronic devices from the property. Now, during his interview, Kegan initially denied creating a fake profile for social media, and he denied contacting underage girls. But later, he would admit that he had been the one using the Anthony Schatz profile, and he had been talking to underage girls on these apps. Kegan said he would find the girls on Instagram, he would reach out to them, knowing their ages, because he would ask them during their conversations, so he would talk to them knowing how old they were. But if a girl told him she was under the age of 16, he said he didn't care, and he would still pursue conversations with her. Conversations that I have no doubt were sexual in nature and inappropriate, given the fact that they are in the affidavit. Some of them are in the affidavit, but they're all redacted. You can't read anything. Keegan would talk with the girls on Instagram for a bit. He would build trust with them, flirt with them. He was using pictures of a young man who wasn't him, right? Using pictures of stacks of cash and fancy expensive sports cars to lure them in. And then he would suggest that they move the conversation over to Snapchat. Now, I don't think there are a lot of underage girls watching this channel, but I know many of you who are here with me today, your parents, mothers and fathers of young girls who you want to keep protected at all costs. And I can tell you right now that this is a huge red flag. In 2017, Fortune.com posted an article titled, "Snapchat's most popular feature is making it tougher to catch pedophiles." And the article goes on to say that law enforcement officials have warned that pedophiles have been increasingly using Snapchat as their go-to sexual exploitation tool, specifically because of one of Snapchat's features, which is their disappearing message tool. Now, the Brookings Institute examined 78 cases of sextortion, which is a form of extortion where a person threatens to expose sexual images of another person if they don't do something, which usually involves sending more pictures, and usually the requests for what the perpetrator wants in these pictures intensifies, becomes more explicit. So basically the person's going to be like, I have blackmail on you. I have pictures of you that you probably don't want anyone to see. So if you don't want anyone to see that, you're going to have to send me more pictures. And now I want you to do this. And now I want to push the envelope. And the young girls who are ashamed and they're afraid of their parents and their friends and their teachers finding out what they have engaged in, they dig themselves into this hole and they feel like they can't get out and they feel like they can't turn to anybody for help. Now, the 78 cases examined by the Brookings Institute involved at least 1,397 victims, and 71% of them were under the age of 18. Social media apps like Snapchat were used in 91% of these cases. So if you're a parent, let your child know that if someone contacts them on an app like Facebook or Instagram, and then all of a sudden they want the conversation moved over to Snapchat, it's most likely for one reason alone: to start talking about sexual things, to ask for sexual pictures and videos, etc., period. That's why. That's usually why. Especially if the person's talking to an underage girl, that's why they want the conversation moved over to Snapchat. Just a few months ago, in September of 2021, 23-year-old Matthew Clark of Essex pleaded guilty to 30 sex offenses after it was discovered he had used the Snap Map feature on Snapchat to track down young girls who would be coming into his place of work. He worked at a Tesco in Colchester. So the Snap Map feature is also something you will want to make sure your underage children are not using. They don't have it turned on if they use Snapchat. This feature allows others to see where you're located. So basically, Matthew Clark would see these young girls and he thought they were cute or whatever the hell. I don't know what goes through the minds of these people. And he would pull up Snapchat and pull up the Snap Map to see who was around, who was in his area. And then he would use the Snap Map to follow the movements of these girls and then make in-person contact with them. Over the period of 5 years, Matthew Clark groomed at least 13 young girls, and some of them were as young as 12 years old. After he would meet them in person, Clark would tell the girls to share sexual images and messages with him, and then he would blackmail them with these images and conversations, threatening to make them public if they didn't do what he wanted. And what he wanted was to meet them in person so he could sexually abuse them, which he did with at least 3 girls that we know of. This is obviously disturbing, but it's also very eerie because we know that on the day Abby and Libby were killed, they were actively using Snapchat, which is going to lead to the obvious question. Had they been communicating with Kegan Klein before their deaths? Or had they been communicating with someone like him, someone like Matthew Clark? A creepy, disturbed man who has an affinity for young girls? Kegan Klein would also admit to communicating with approximately 15 underage girls, and he said that he had probably received pictures from all of them. Pictures which he would then save to his phone or device for his own personal use later. He also said he had gotten approximately 20 videos from these underage girls, and in these videos, the girls would be performing sex acts on themselves, and then Keegan would use these videos to perform sex acts on himself, if you know what I mean, which I'm sure you do. During his interview with police, Kegan Klein told law enforcement that he was fucked up and he should have already left. He had been in Vegas for a little bit and he'd returned on the 25th, the day that the search warrant was served. He said he had already packed a bag and he was planning to return to Vegas, and the plan was to leave while his father was asleep. Keegan was brought into the police station and given a polygraph, but the questions asked during this polygraph were based on a different case, according to the affidavit. However, the case they're referring to, the case that they were asking him questions about, that was redacted in the documents. And there is no indication of whether Keegan passed or failed his polygraph. After taking the polygraph, Keegan was returned to his father's house at 7:30 that evening, and remember that time because it's going to be relevant in a moment. As I said, multiple electronic devices had been seized from the home that Keegan was living in Peru, Indiana, and we're going to go through each device and what was found on them. An Apple iPhone 4, which had the name Keegan's iPhone, had been used last on November 11th, 2016. The person who had been using this phone, which I think we can safely assume was Kegan Klein himself, since it was found in his home, and it's called Keegan's iPhone, whoever it was, aka Keegan, had communicated with teenage girls and shared media files depicting CSAM. And CSAM stands for Child Sex Abuse Material, but for now I'll just refer to it as CSAM because it's less sad. Some of these files showed female children between the ages of 12 and 17 posing nude or partially nude, as well as performing sex acts on themselves. Other files located depicted children between the ages of 3 and 11 engaged in a sex act with an adult. Now here's where something inside of me began to bend, and then it snapped. First of all, anyone who takes any pleasure from watching the sexual abuse of a child as young as 3 or 11 or any age needs to be wiped off the face of the earth post-haste. Now, I'm not calling for violence. I'm not saying I'm going to do anything or that I want you guys to go out there and be vigilantes and do anything, all right? Like, don't get it twisted. All I'm saying is they need to not be here anymore. Secondly, let's call it what it is. What was on his phone, his devices? That wasn't a child engaged in a sex act with an adult. It's a child being sexually abused. It's a child being raped. It's every ounce of innocence and joy being stripped from that little human being in an instant where their lives will never be the same. And then to add insult to injury, these sick fucks, pardon my language, they share this incredibly violent and scary experience with other sick fucks, pardon my language, so they can all get off on it. Okay? There were also other photos on this phone of Keegan Klein himself with a black handgun. Now, on May 14th, 2016, Keegan had communicated with another party whose identity has not been revealed because apparently it's our job, or law enforcement's job, or the legal system's job to protect pedophiles, which I don't get. Why are we doing that? I know what you're going to say. They're innocent until proven guilty. I mean, come on. Technically, that's true. But when the evidence is staring you in the face, you don't have to wait for a jury trial to decide where you stand. And if you stand on the side of people who think pedophiles deserve privacy or protection of any kind, I can't mess with you. But anyways, Keegan was communicating with this other individual, and he shared Dropbox links containing CSAM files. Someone who used this phone, allegedly Keegan, would communicate with underage girls using the Anthony Shots profile as well as another profile, Emily Ann 45, which from what I can tell, Emily Ann is the name of Keegan Klein's stepsister. Now this Emily Ann profile, it was also used on another device taken from Klein's home, a Samsung Galaxy S4, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Most of the communications using this device happened on Snapchat and Kik, K-I-K, which is a messaging app, and these conversations were recovered, and they're in the affidavit, but they're redacted. And you could say, like, oh, they're trying to protect the privacy of the underage girls who were involved in these conversations, and that's fine. So redact their stuff, redact what they said, but let us see what he said. Let us see how big of a scumbag he actually is. And, spoiler alert, I'm really good at predicting the end of movies, and I think that Keegan Kline's probably a pretty big scumbag, one of the biggest. Next, we have an iPhone 3, and the name of this phone was Keggy with a smiley face. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that Keggy is some sort of nickname for Kegan Klein. This device was last used on May 23, 2015, and no chat conversations were recovered from the phone that were of evidentiary value, but there were multiple images recovered of women posing nude or partially nude, although the ages of all of these women were not able to be determined. Keegan had saved over 200 images to this phone, images that had been sent to him, and approximately 27 of these images depicted females who appeared to be under the age of 14. Some of these 27 pictures were geolocated and led back to Indiana cities, including Bunker Hill, Galveston, Indianapolis, Kokomo, Monterey, and Royal Center. The web history from this phone was also recovered, and there was a list of search terms that Keegan Klein had Googled, and they were listed in the affidavit, but they've been redacted. Next, we have a Samsung Galaxy S4, which was last used on June 25, 2015. The affidavit states that this device had been powered on multiple times after that date, but showed no usage. Now, when they say no usage, I wonder if they're able to tell if whoever turned it on, if they'd done so just to look through the pictures and videos that they had saved to the phone. Like when they say no usage, it could simply mean that no messages were sent, no calls made, and the internet was never accessed. But it makes sense if the person's turning the phone on multiple times and not using it, they may be doing that just to look at their disgusting picture collection that they had accumulated. Many chat conversations had also been deleted from this device, but the ones that remained showed that Keegan had been talking to multiple females, some who appeared to be as young as 12 or 13, and he had done this using two profiles, a profile whose handle was just Kegan Klein, and then that Emily Ann profile. He used these two profiles to talk to the girls. Conversations were recovered where the Emily Ann profile talked to young girls and discussed having sex with Keegan Klein and his father at the same time. Now remember, Emily Ann is allegedly Keegan's stepsister, but in the affidavit, the detective wrote that Emily was communicating with these girls, and he put Emily's name in quotations, which leads me to believe that they don't think it was truly Emily speaking. It was probably Keegan using the profile to catfish these young girls into thinking that he too was a young girl and having a conversation about him as a young girl having sex with two grown men. That is a grooming tactic, leading these juvenile girls that he was talking to into thinking that this kind of thing is normal and happens all the time. Now, multiple CSAM files were found, and it was indicated that they had been captured from Skype and Snapchat using the screen grab function on a cell phone. Many of these images showed females approximately 12 to 17 years of age, and the internet searches were recovered, but they were redacted in the affidavit. A netbook tablet was also seized, and the last time that tablet had been used was March 9, 2016. There were many chat conversations recovered from social media platforms like Facebook, Facebook Messenger, Kik, MeetMe.com, Skype, and Snapchat. The MO of Keegan Klein during these conversations was to meet the girls on Instagram or Facebook and then move the conversation to Snapchat or Skype. The conversations he had were redacted in the affidavit. There was also an Apple iPod Touch. This Apple iPod Touch went by the name Keegan Smiley Face, and it was last used on May 30th, 2015. And multiple images of females were on that iPod Touch. 4 of them contained location data for Hammond or Royal City, Indiana. Internet searches were pulled from this device, but once again, redacted in the affidavit. Now, there's 2 other phones we haven't gone through yet, but that's because the situation with them is a little different, and there is evidence that they were tampered with before law enforcement got their hands on them. A Samsung Galaxy S5, which had the name Klein Photography, it had been factory reset 2 days before the search warrant was executed on February 25, 2017. Law enforcement was able to recover some chat messages from this device, and apparently these conversations discussed meeting people in Vegas and prostitution. The affidavit does not say whether the conversations, which took place between February 23rd and February 25th of 2017, were about getting a sex worker or already having been with one. They are not clear about that, but the search history was also recovered from this device, and it has been redacted. Now, when Kegan Klein was first interviewed, he claimed his main phone that he most often used was an Apple iPhone 5C, but he said he didn't have it and he didn't know where it was. He was instructed to find the phone and turn it over to law enforcement. On February 27th, 2 days after the search warrant was executed, Kegan Klein contacted the ISP Cybercrimes Unit to inform them that he'd found the iPhone 5C, and on March 2nd, ISP obtained this device. I don't know what took them so long, but there you have it. The iPhone 5C had been named Keegan's iPhone and had last been used on February 27th, 2017. But before Kegan had turned it over to the police, he had deleted a lot of stuff on it. The 5C had been using the apps Facebook, MeetMe, Snapchat, and Twitter, but much of the data from these apps had been deleted, even though there were plenty of pictures from those apps that had been saved to the phone's gallery, which showed nude females. A digital forensics report showed that on February 25th, less than 2 hours after being dropped off back home by the police after his polygraph, Kegan began deleting data and uninstalling apps. At 9:19 p.m., he uninstalled and deleted Snapchat. And at 10:14 p.m., he uninstalled and deleted Instagram. The next day, on February 26th at 1:12 p.m., Kegan uninstalled and deleted MeetMe. And then he reinstalled Snapchat. But 24 hours later, at 1:28 p.m. on February 27th, Kegan again uninstalled and deleted Snapchat. So he basically put Snapchat back on his phone and had it up for 24 hours before he deleted it again. Now, what was he doing in that 24 hours? Who knows? Deleting things? Clearing the app out of any incriminating data? Who knows? On the same day, the 27th, Kegan also deleted the Safari web browsing history and website data off the iPhone 5C. Some information from the phone was recovered, but it has been redacted. Kegan Klein was not arrested in February of 2017 when all of these disgusting things he did were discovered. No, he wasn't arrested at that time. For some reason, he was allowed to roam around and go to Las Vegas and jump in mosh pits at Warped Tour until August of 2020, when he was then arrested while he was staying at the apartment of his girlfriend. I'm so sorry, girl, that you got in a relationship with this dude and you had to find out this way. Maybe you already knew. I don't know, but dodged a bullet. And Kegan Klein was charged with 30 felony counts, including child exploitation, possession of child pornography, and obstruction of justice. And then, this month in 2021, the ISP asked the public to come forward if they'd ever communicated with the Anthony Shots profile in 2016 and or 2017. And that's the same profile that we know Kegan Klein was using during those years. Now, it's pretty clear, to me at least, that law enforcement believes there may be some connection between Kegan Klein and Abby and Libby, and it's not hard to see why. But we don't even know a small percentage of what the ISP and the police and the FBI know, which has been the norm with this case, in which everything has been kept very quiet. Kegan Klein's public defender, Andrew H.E., has released a statement saying, quote, "My client has nothing to do with the unexpected, untimely, and unfortunate passing of the girls in Delphi," end quote. But I mean, what else is he going to say, right? We wouldn't expect him to say anything different. At this point, Kegan Klein is behind bars awaiting his trial, but the charges he's facing, they won't keep him in prison for life. In fact, knowing our justice system, I'd be surprised if he even got a year in prison. So there's no logical reason that Klein would own up to having murdered 2 young girls, but investigators on the Delphi case have revealed that the person using the Anthony Shots profile was using it to not only get explicit pictures from these young girls, but also to get their addresses and meet with them. And we also know that he was communicating with young girls in that Indiana area. It has long been a theory that Abby and Libby may have been in contact with someone online during the time before their deaths. And it's possible that if they were, this person may have asked them to meet him at the bridge that day. Or maybe they volunteered the information that they were going to be at the bridge that day, thinking they were communicating with a handsome young man who's got abs that go on for days, but really they're communicating with somebody like Kegan Klein. Now, the following is simply my own speculation, just me trying to put some of the pieces together, so don't take this as fact or evidence. It's just my mind and me thinking, and let me know if you're thinking something similar or if you have other theories. But remember, there were two sketches of Bridge Guy that were released by the police. The first was released in July of 2017, and it shows an older man, he's unshaven, kind of unkempt, kind of looks like he might smell a little bit. And compared with the brief video that we have of Bridge Guy, it did kind of look like this sketch could be the face of Bridge Guy. Like his face kind of looked like his body looked. But then 2 years later, in 2019, they released another sketch of Bridge Guy, and it was completely different, right? This sketch showed a much younger man. He was clean cut, normal looking, nothing remarkable about him. He wouldn't really stand out to you if you were walking down the street. And it was communicated to us that this second sketch was considered to be more accurate than the original released 2 years prior. Now, also remember that Kegan Klein had been communicating with another person who he had shared this disgusting material with to Dropbox. So they both had access to this Dropbox account, and they would share disgusting pictures with each other. And this is a person who has not been identified, but I have wondered for a while if Bridge Guy is one person or two people working together to commit this horrible crime. It is possible that two men may have been responsible for Abby and Libby's death, but we only got to see one of them, the one who instructed the girls to go down the hill, whose voice we've all heard hundreds or thousands of times. But what if down the hill, another man was waiting? 2 girls, 2 men. I've always felt that it would have been very difficult for one person to have kept both Abby and Libby, calm and docile and stopped them from running away. It's been speculated that the girls didn't want to leave each other. They showed solidarity. But what if there was another individual there who made it easier to keep both girls restrained and incapable of escaping? The ISP has been very clear about their statement when, they've been asked recently by news networks and things like, is Kegan Kline connected to Delphi? And they pretty much said, we're not saying anything. That's what they said. They said, we are not revealing anyone who is or is not a suspect or a person of interest. We are just asking for information about this Anthony Schatz profile. That's all they had to say. So although this Kegan Klein guy at this point does seem good for it, right? It's just there's a lot of factors that line up. There's a lot of factors that seem like they might fit. A lot of people also thought James Chadwell was good for it a couple months ago. And there's been a multitude of other individuals and persons of interest that we've latched onto. So we have to kind of reserve jumping onto it right now. He could be innocent of what happened to Abby and Libby, but I think we can all agree, regardless of whether he was involved with what happened to Abby and Libby, he's a scumbag. He's scum of the earth level, and he needs to never see the light of day again. As a parent, do you feel comfortable that this predator would be released back out there? Because that might happen. But right now, the most important thing is this Anthony Schatz profile. We all have to look at it, and anyone who may have communicated with that profile should go to the ISP and give them any information they know or have. Now, there's going to be some challenges with this, because if anyone did talk to him during, 2016 and 2017, it's likely they were young girls at the time, because those are the kinds of people that he targeted and who he went for, because God forbid he should try to, make it with a woman his own age. And so since the ages of the girls he victimizes are so young, they may be embarrassed. They may be embarrassed to admit what kind of things they shared with this person that they thought was this young, attractive kid and turned out to be nasty, gross Keegan Klein. They might even be afraid of getting into trouble. I mean, imagine if there was a girl in 2017 who was 13 talking to this kid, this dude, this guy, and she said something or did something or sent pictures, and now she's, 17, 18, she doesn't want to tell her parents that she did that. She doesn't want to be the one to come forward and admit that. It's embarrassing. She might feel shame. And so I do think that's going to pose a challenge in the ISP getting, upfront information. But it's really important, especially if you live in the Indiana area. Talk to your kids. Tell them they won't be in trouble. What's going to happen? It was 5 years ago. What's done is done. But you need to know everything so that you can protect them. And the ISP needs to know everything they can to hopefully bring justice to the 2 little girls who we couldn't protect. We cannot save Abby and Libby at this point, but we can look at what happens in these cases and use them when we're raising our own children or when we're taking care of ourselves to really be more aware that the world out there is dangerous, but it can be less so. If you're aware, if you know what to look for, if you know the red flags, if you are able to protect yourself. So that's all I have for you today, a quick update. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Please, whatever positive energy you have in you, send it out to Abby and Libby's families right now. I mean, it's obviously something that brings them hope. They're hoping that there's some movement in this case. There hasn't been anything new coming out of this case in roughly 2 years. So to have something new, to have a potential lead to go on to follow, it's obviously giving the families a feeling of hope, but it's an emotional roller coaster. They're up, they're down. This has gone on way too long, and they're just wanting it to be over so that they can move on with their lives. And hopefully this brings us one step closer to that. Thank you guys so much for being here. Like the video if you liked it. Share it if you think it's worth sharing. I do think this one's worth sharing. That's just my opinion. But hopefully we got to get as many eyes on it as possible. Subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to check out my podcast, Crime Weekly. Link is in the description box. Don't forget to check out Native. Get your 20% off your body washes. Get your 3 deodorants for $24. It's awesome. Also link in the description box. Thank you guys so much for being here. Stay kind, stay beautiful, and please stay safe. And I'll see you soon. Bye.
Well, the levee don't break now, and the bottle's going straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. Oh, this feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name, better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly. And so you got to let it go. I got blood on the strings, blood on the strings, blood on the strings. Being played so my fingers don't bleed. Got blood on the strings, blood on the strings, blood on the strings. Lord knows it's been a rough week. Well, channeling my son, how